Christian, the man who cursed himself. I'm sorry for the long delay between the first Christian video and this one. I got very sick for a while and now I'm better, so I'm going back to it. I guess this is part 2 of that Is Christian possessed by demons video that I made not that long ago. And yeah, now we're going into curses. But also in the last video, I went a lot into talking about the demon Choronzon 333 and the likeness to that archetype to Christian's history and behavior. And I'm only using that as an archetypal form of what I see demons to sort of be, I guess. And I'm not saying that Christian is possessed by that demon in particular. I'm just talking about it on an archetypal level. But Choronzon 333 from Enochian Magic, Dr. John Dee and Sir Edward Kelly is the perfect example of what a demon actually is, at least in my perspective from a kind of occult standpoint, which you can say what you want. I don't really care. I'm not saying it is, I'm just putting it out there. But yeah, I generally do believe Chris was telling the truth for a change when he said that he was possessed by Magi-Chan in particular. If you watch that video where he's doing the thing with his hand and his psychic abilities and all that shit, and now with him going around saying he's a goddess, but not that that's that unusual. Just look at Wicca, the amount of Wiccans who go around saying that they're goddesses and all that shit is a prime example of that kind of Choronzon 333 infection. And I'll reiterate one thing that I quoted last week from an occultist, a chaos magician from back in the day. And chaos magic is a thing. It's not just from Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever someone told me it was from. It's something that goes back to the 1970s. People were getting sick of having to do long ceremonial ritual magic and wanted to condense it down in a way that is practical for people like essentially you and me. And I would classify myself closer towards chaos magic than anything like the Golden Hermetic Order, the Golden Dawn, because I'm not part of anything. I don't have a whole group to do long rituals dressing up as Osiris or Thoth or something. Anyway, just to quickly reiterate from the last video, I will read Crowley's explanation of Choronzon from his book Confessions, chapter 66. The name of the dweller in the abyss is Choronzon, but he's not really an individual. The abyss is empty of being. It is filled with all possible forms, each equally inane, each therefore evil in the only true sense of the word. That is, meaningless, but malignant, insofar that it craves to become real. These forms swirl senselessly into haphazard heaps like dust devils, and each such chance aggregation asserts itself to be an individual and shrieks, "I am I," though aware all the time that its elements have no true bond, so that the slightest disturbance dissipates the delusion, just as a horseman meeting a dust devil brings it in showers of sand to the earth. So that is Aleister Crowley talking about Choronzon 333 in Confessions, and it's very good archetype to what a demon or a jinn or a fairy is, in my opinion. And Thelema is very good with this kind of stuff, and I very much subscribe to a lot of Aleister Crowley's belief system, especially his magical system, and the Book of the Law, etc. And now we're going to Peter J. Carroll's description. Carroll's description is more relevant with regards to Christian, and it is a more modern interpretation, so it's easier to understand the archetype. Peter J. Carroll says that Choronzon is simply the name given to the obsessional side effects of any deluded search for a false holy guardian angel, or anything which the magician would mistake for his own profound genius itself. Now that's very, very relevant to Chris Chan and his behavior. And that's sort of some Chaos Magicians' perspectives on Kuronzon 333. And I think that fits very well with Chris Chan and with what's going on. And even with people like Jacob Sockness. Anyway, now I'll go into the whole cursing thing. Chris Chan is the poster child as to why you should never curse anybody and what happens if you curse people and it goes wrong or doesn't work. If you watch the Geno Senma documentaries, especially during the period after the initial trolling and going to the period of the Aperpedia 4 and him constantly doing his Kursei Yami-Ha stuff, during that period and then straight afterwards, the absolute degeneration of himself and his family's pets dying, all sorts of stuff, the house fire, his father passing, all the horrible stuff that happened to him straight after that period, that he was constantly cursing Alec Benson Leary, Mao, Evan, and the other guy. And I'm going to use them as kind of the example as to what happens when you fuck up cursing people and why it's a good case study into this whole phenomena. I do not believe in cursing and things like that, and I'm not coming from this from a religious angle. I'm purely, it's just pure speculation. I could be wrong. I'm just looking at it on a archetypal level, I guess, and I'm just putting it out there. Saying that again, but yeah, I'm just putting it out there. It's just a discussion. Now, within magic, cursing is sort of the lowest of the low. It takes very little effort to curse somebody, yet at the same time, it's devastating, not only to the victim, but also to the practitioner, and it is extremely dangerous. And the one rule of cursing that people just these days do not understand, mostly through things like Wicca, where they have no understanding of the rules of magical engagement, is you never curse anyone who's done you no personal harm. And by no personal harm, somebody parroting your work and making a few jokes, as long as it's not in a passive-aggressive way, but someone who's parroting you and parroting your work in a kind of bardic way, that is not personal harm. Personal harm is if somebody sits down and goes, I want to destroy this person's life, I want to make this person go insane, I want to make this person kill themselves, I want to go to their door and physically hurt them, or psychologically destroy them. And you can say in a sense that he was justified cursing people like Blue Spike or Clyde Cash, etc., because they did do Chris Chan personal harm. And you could argue that the Aperpedia guys and Asperchu did him personal harm. No, it was a parody. You can't even compare it. Out of all the trolls, I don't consider Alec Benson Leary a troll. He was brilliant. Asperchu is hilarious, and he parodied Chris Chan perfectly. And Chris Chan fell for it and kind of cursed himself from the whole thing. And hold on a sec. And Chris Chan falling for the bait with him drawing Aperpedia and Sonichu together and putting it on the forum, which initially led Chris Chan to the Aperpedia comics. That wasn't personal harm. He took the bait. And Alec Benson Leary, unlike the other trolls, did not pretend to be some girlfriend to try and win Chris Chan's love and affection. That is doing someone personal harm. You're manipulating them. You're essentially doing something terrible ethically. And as much as everyone loves Liquid Chris, he essentially, in the rules of magical engagement, he's fair game for Chris Chan to curse him, purely because of his involvement with Casey. The whole Casey thing, and adding that love interest, which Chris of course fell for, that was fucked up. That was doing Chris personal harm, utilizing something very, very, very private, and then leaking it all out, blackmailing and doing all that kind of stuff. If Liquid, and I have a lot more respect for Liquid if he purely impersonated Chris Chan like a bard in a making a parody of him, rather than having the whole love quest thing get involved. Anyway, on to why Chris Chan is the greatest example of a man who's cursed himself. And I could talk about cursing for an hour at least. There's just so much to it. But for the sake of this video, I'll try and condense it down. And I might do something on it later, not related to Chris Chan. But with regards to cursing, if you curse somebody, you're not just cursing that individual. You're cursing them and usually their family line. And I don't care if you don't believe in any of this stuff. I'm just telling you what I know from various different sources around the world of histories of cursing in places like Scotland, Haiti, and the kind of rebound effects that these have, and the devastating effects these have. People have gone and left to other continents to get away from family hereditary curses. And this shit is taken very seriously in the majority of the non-Western world. And it was taken very seriously right up through the 1800s. And it wasn't because people were unenlightened, it was because things were happening to these people. And when someone's cursed, generally they'll just start deteriorating, and their pets will start dying around them. And things will just start happening, and family members will die. Their children will die. I mean, it's horrible. Cursing is possibly the worst form of black magic. And all that Wicca bullshit, which was initially made up by Aleister Crowley and Gerald Gardner. They wrote the Wicked Read, and then they put that out there to keep the crazies out of the occult, to keep people who are not psychically protected and mature enough, and I mean that in the sense of the psyche, to enter into the organizations like the Ordo Templi Orientis. So how does this relate to Chris Chan? And how is Kosei Yameha, the adaptation of that Dragon Ball Z thing, how is that a real curse? Well, in Chaos Magic, there's a thing called using belief as a tool. You weaponize belief systems that you might not actually believe in, but you force yourself to believe in it in order to make the operation successful. Now, Chris Chan firmly believes that he is cursing these people to have bad luck. And I'm really new to all this, so yeah, forgive my lovely editing. So how is Kosei Yameha a real curse? Well, in Chaos Magic also, they utilize fiction. And instead of looking at old grimoires or hermetic systems or Kabbalism, they will use things like the Lovecraft mythos and then mix it with aspects of the Goetia in order to try and summon an entity like Cthulhu. And there's been all sorts of things with chaos magicians summoning the head of John Lennon, and it would float around and sing around the room. I know that sounds bizarre, but there are very, very strange things you can do if you're open to actually trying it. Now, because Christian firmly believed the curse of Yami-Ha was a real curse, and when he was putting it out there, he was putting it out there as a magical ritual, a black magic ritual, essentially. And the amount of psychic intensity that he puts into it is going somewhere. And the reason I believe he cursed himself is during 2009-2010, with the Aperpedia 4 guys who did him no personal harm other than parodying him and putting ads on his website. And they didn't go out to destroy him as an individual. They ended him cursing them over and over again. Well, what happens is the curse rebounds because they did him no personal harm, and that psychic energy has to come back somewhere. So it goes back to the idiot who sent it. And this is why a lot of Wiccans you'll meet are like 50 and they're bitter and they're angry and you go, why are they even bothered involved with this thing when it's not really making them any happier? They're not like successful witches or anything like that. They don't have... They're bitter about their ex-husbands, and they've cursed their ex-husbands 50 fucking times, casting lemon spells on them that don't work. Because Crawley and Gardner, even though it was changed by some lady in the 1970s when they realized that Crawley and Gardner wrote Wicked to kind of keep people out of it, but that's a whole other subject matter. I'm getting off track, but yeah, it's real phenomena. And when Christian was constantly cursing Alec Benson Leary, and there was an amazing phone call where Alec Benson Leary talks to Chris back when he was a very, very pious Christian. It doesn't matter that he hasn't read the Bible and stuff like that. His belief is enough. And when Alec Benson Leary said, you know, you're not allowed to use magic in Christianity, and especially not black magic, and he says he mentions the curse of Yami-Ha stuff, and Christian doesn't listen, but he makes a brilliant point, and is the only person to make that point. Is why is he doing that if he's a Christian? Because in the Torah there is absolutely, you are forbidden to perform magic, essentially, and in the Tanakh also, and then you go into the New Testament, Jesus doesn't, go, oh, under subsection amendment B, you can curse this person if this individual does this. No, it's just black and white. No. So after he started to curse the Aperpedia 4 guys with the curse of Yami-Ha's, there is, especially if you watch the Gino Sama documentaries, you can see a significant degeneration of Christian's psyche starting to happen. And a lot of it is the trolling that was happening before. And yeah, it would have been stressful for him with his website and stuff like that, but his cursing of them, in my opinion, was rebounding because none of them had done him any personal harm back onto him, essentially causing the bad luck that he was trying to push out using unwittingly using a form of chaos magic and using a fictionalized attack to psychically attack somebody, and it does work. And the Aperpedia 4 guys, they were protected in a sense because they did him no personal harm. It bounced back on him, and the more he kept cursing, the more this builds up. All this psychic energy that Krish is pushing out is now coming back in. And that's when things started to really degenerate. And I know that there's a practical explanation behind everything. His dad passing away was going to happen. He was very old and he was unwell. But when you were cursed, these things start to manifest around you much more quickly, or even because of the curse itself. I mean, you had people in Ireland who had moved to places like Australia not that long ago, and purely to get away from their family hereditary curse. That's how dead seriously people took it. And, you know, some of the effects of cursing, I mean, it's so unethical because you're not just cursing the individual, you're going to end up killing their pets. Their kids might start dying around them. So when it rebounds, it doesn't usually have the full effect, but it builds up, as I just said earlier. And I know how bizarre this sounds to people who aren't involved in the kind of stuff I am. And maybe just think of it as archetypally. And 2010 ended, and what happened? Christian's father died, which was tragic. I'm not saying it was because Christian cursed himself by accident, because he's an idiot when it comes to magical practice. I'm just saying archetypally it all happened towards the end of the Aperpedia phase. And to me, that was not a coincidence. In my opinion, there are no accidents in this world. If you get bitten by a snake, that happened because someone intended for you to be bitten. Their will, their malicious intent was so strong and put out there that it caused that event to happen. I know that's a strange perspective, but we all have, we all are allowed to have our own opinions. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Anyway, and then in 2011, his gender dysphoria thing came on mostly because of a dream he had about being reincarnated by, that he's reincarnation for some hippie woman or some shit. I don't believe that's the case. And I don't believe he's transgender. And I believe that his psyche just fell apart. And he was already psychically weak from all the attacks he was having from the people who were actually malicious. And I bet you, if you look at the lives of the people who trolled him, even people like Liquid Chris, who I would usually give a pass as being, you know, somebody who was very, very gentle compared to the others. He still very unethically pulled in that Casey girl and made it all about the love quest. And I wouldn't be surprised if their lives are in pieces, because in a way they were cursing Chris. The same psychic feedback kind of loop that works in the real world, or in reality, with regards to people and the damaging effects that fucking up somebody's life can have when it rebounds on yourself, that works also within the non-material world, on a energetic level. And 2011 comes by, and his deterioration is just terrible. And that's because all these curses to these 4 people who did him no personal harm, I know I keep repeating myself, but This is a very serious matter. It just kept building up and building up and building up. The house fire happened, his life fell apart. Financially, they were ruined. The whole thing where he ended up, the Michael Snyder stuff, and the degeneration of his health and mental health. And it went on for years. To me, when I was watching the Gino Samuel documentaries, after years of forgetting about Chris Chan, and with the perspective I have now, which is very different than what I had back during, 2008, 9, 10, 11, when this is all kind of happening, I was just watching it and going, Chris Chan is cursed. He cursed himself. Anyway, this has gone way, way longer than I thought it would. But, yeah, don't curse people who have done you no personal harm. If you're going to curse someone, do it on your deathbed, because then at least it won't blow back on you. But if you're going to do it, live with the consequences that their children might die. It might be hereditary. And if you want to watch a really amusing, but kind of tragic at the same time, example of people who tried to curse someone and failed miserably and it blowed back in their faces, watch the Wiccans who tried to curse Donald Trump in 2016. And they used the tower card and they threw it in, for the tarot, and they threw it in a fire and they said, you're fired, you're fired. It was so fucking stupid. They should have used a different card, but I'm not going to tell you which one it is. But, their limited intelligence made them think that archetypally the tower card would be better. But because, Trump Tower, God, they're fucking stupid. Anyway, their lives were just fucking ruined. And one of them is on, like, begging for money on the internet. The main guy with the stupid book. You should watch that video. Just look up Wiccans cursing Trump 2016. And, yeah, it rebounded on them. They were trying to do a mass binding spell. And most of them ended up in psych wards and ended up their lives just falling apart because Trump did them no personal harm. He didn't go up to them and say, I'm going to ruin your life personally, cunt. No. He's just a politician who you don't like. Just wait 4 years. You guys could have just waited. You didn't have to bind him and anyone who helped bring him into power, who voted for him. That was monumentally stupid. And as I said, just look at it on a kind of archetypal level. Even if you think everything I'm saying is insane or bullshit, I don't really care. Just look at it in a kind of just philosophical view. And I'm gonna start talking about a lot of this stuff outside of Chris Chan, but I'm just sort of doing it for fun and getting used to this medium. Anyway, thank you, my true and honest fans. I will see you guys later.